The signal came on a Tuesday morning when Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his coffee on the bridge of the UES Discovery. His ship was on a routine patrol near the edge of human space, checking for asteroids and mapping new star systems. The SEER, communication officer Lieutenant Amy Clark, suddenly looked up from her station with wide eyes. "Captain, we're getting something strange," she said. "It's not from Earth or any of our colonies." Jake set down his cup and walked over to her station. The signal was unlike anything they had seen before. It came in patterns that seemed too organized to be natural, but too alien to be human, indeed. "It to the linguists on New Geneva Station," Jake ordered, "and patch me through to Earth Command." 3 hours later, Ambassador Lisa Kane was working late in her office on New Geneva Station when the signal arrived. Lisa had spent 20 years studying alien languages that might exist somewhere in the galaxy. Now she was looking at the first real alien message humanity had ever received. The translation took her team 4 days of non-stop work. When they finally cracked the code, Lisa felt her heart sink. The message was a cry for help from a species called the Zilani. "We are the Zilani of the world Christos," the message began. "For 3 years, the Korthak Empire has attacked our world. Our cities are broken. Our people are dying. We have studied your species, humans of Earth. Your history shows you fight for others who cannot fight for themselves. We ask for your help. We are not warriors like you. We are builders and healers. But the Korthak destroy everything we create. They will not stop until we are all dead." Lisa read the message again and again. The Zilani had somehow learned about human history. They knew about World War II, about how humans had fought against evil even when it cost them everything. They were asking humanity to do it again, but this time in space. She called Admiral Ben Collins immediately. Ben was the head of Earth's military forces, a tough man who had fought in the Mars Colony War. When Lisa explained what the message said, Ben was quiet for a long time. "How far away are they?" he asked finally. "About 40 light years," Lisa answered. "In the Vega sector." "That's a long way to go to help strangers," Ben said. "That's what makes us human," Lisa replied. Within hours, Ben had called together the United Earth Defense Council. The meeting was held in the big conference room in Geneva, with leaders from every major nation on Earth. The debate started immediately. Senator Carol Davis from North America spoke first. "We barely have enough ships to protect our own colonies," she said. "Why should we risk our soldiers' lives for aliens we've never met?" General Rick Taylor from the European Union disagreed. "This is exactly why we built our fleet," he said. "Not just to protect Earth, but to do what's right. These Zilani are asking for our help because they believe in us." The argument went on, for hours. Some leaders wanted to ignore the message completely. Others wanted to send just a few ships to investigate. A few wanted to send humanitarian aid, but no military forces. President Helen Brooks listened to all of them without saying much. Helen had been a Marine before she became a politician. She had fought on Mars during the colony uprising and had seen what happened when good people did nothing while others suffered. Finally, she stood up. The room became quiet. 50 years ago, my grandfather fought in a war on Earth, she said. He told me something I never forgot. He said the measure of a civilization isn't how strong it is, but how it treats those who are weaker. The Zilani are asking for our help because they believe we're better than their enemies. If we turn our backs on them, what does that make us? She looked around the room at all the world leaders. The Zilani studied our history and decided we were worth asking for help. They could have asked any of the other species out there, but they chose us. That means something. It means they see something in humanity that maybe we don't always see in ourselves. Helen walked to the big window that looked out over Earth. I'm not going to let the first aliens who reach out to us die because we were too scared or too selfish to help. We're going to show the galaxy what humanity stands for. The vote was close, but President Brooks got her way. Earth would answer the Zilani call for help. Admiral Ben Collins was put in charge of organizing the response. He had never commanded anything bigger than a battle group, but now he had to put together the largest fleet in human history. The work started immediately. Ships from every nation were called back to Earth. The big shipyards around Luna started, working around the clock to get everything ready. Civilian ships were converted to carry troops and supplies. Even old ships that were supposed to be scrapped were fixed up and sent to join the fleet. Captain Jake Morrison's ship, the Discovery, was one of the first to volunteer. Jake had been the one to receive the original message, and he felt responsible for seeing it through. "We started this," he told his crew. "Now we finish it." The news of the alien message spread quickly across Earth. People had different reactions. Some were excited about meeting aliens for the first time. Others were scared about getting involved in an alien war. But most people supported the decision to help. In schools, children learned about the Zilani and their crystal cities. In churches, priests and ministers spoke about the duty to help those in need. On the news, experts debated what this meant for humanity's future among the stars. But in the military bases and shipyards, there was no debate. Soldiers, sailors, and pilots prepared for humanity's first war in space. They didn't know what they would find when they reached Christos, but they knew they had to try. 3 weeks after the message arrived, the fleet was ready. Over 800 ships of every size and type waited in formation near Luna. At the center was the massive dreadnought UES Leviathan, commanded by Captain Mary Rodriguez. As the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Captain Jake Morrison sent one last message back to Earth. "We're going to show the galaxy what humans do when someone asks for help," he said. "We deploy the fleet." The biggest military operation in human history began the morning after President Brooks made her decision. Admiral Ben Collins had never organized anything this big before, but he knew Earth had no choice but to succeed. Major Steve Parker was eating breakfast with his family when his phone rang. His wife Kate looked worried when she saw his expression change. "How long will you be gone?" she asked. "I don't know," Steve answered honestly. "Maybe a very long time." Steve commanded the 7th Fleet Battle Group, 12 ships that normally patrolled the outer colonies. Now his ships would be part of something much bigger. He kissed his wife and children goodbye, not knowing when he would see them again. On Mars, Colonel Amy Foster was having the same conversation with her husband. Amy ran the ground forces at Fort Armstrong, the biggest military base outside Earth. Her job was to get 20,000 Marines ready to fight in space. "We don't even know what we're fighting," her husband said. "We know we're fighting for people who can't fight for themselves," Amy replied. "That's enough." The hardest job belonged to Captain Danny Wright and his engineering teams. Danny had to turn civilian ships into warships in just 3 weeks. His people worked without sleep, installing weapons and armor on cargo ships, passenger, liners, and even old mining vessels. The big cargo ship New Frontier had carried supplies between Earth and the colonies for 30 years. Now Danny's team was filling it with bunks for soldiers and turning its cargo bays into barracks. The ship's captain, an old man named Pete Johnson, watched sadly as his peaceful ship became a tool of war. "She was never meant for fighting," Pete said. "None of us were," Danny replied. "But sometimes you have to fight anyway." The luxury liner, Star Princess, had taken rich people on tours of the solar system. Now it was being converted into a hospital ship. Dr. Lisa Park supervised the installation of medical equipment in what used to be dance halls and restaurants. "We'll save more lives than we take," she told her nurses. "That's what makes us different from the enemies." Meanwhile, Commander Beth Taylor was working with a team of intelligence officers to study everything the Zilani had told them about the Korthak. The alien empire had been conquering worlds for hundreds of years. They used huge numbers of ships and soldiers to overwhelm their enemies. "They're like a swarm of insects," Beth explained to her team. "They don't use clever tactics, they just attack with everything they have until the other side gives up or dies." Lieutenant Commander Frank Lopez was running computer simulations of battles against Korthak forces. Frank had studied military history his whole life, and he noticed something important about human warfare. "Look at this," he told Beth. "Every time humans have fought a bigger enemy, we've won by doing something unexpected. We don't fight the way our enemies think we will." Frank showed her examples from Earth's history. When the American colonies fought the British Empire, they used hit-and-run tactics instead of standing in lines like European armies. When the Finns fought the Soviet Union, They used the winter and the forest to defeat a much larger army. The Korthak have been fighting for centuries, Frank said, but they've always fought the same way. They don't know how to handle an enemy that thinks differently. This gave Beth an idea. She started planning tactics that no alien empire would expect. Instead of big space battles, humans would use small, fast groups to attack supply lines. Instead of defending fixed positions, they would keep moving and strike where the enemy was weakest. As the fleet came together, stories spread across Earth about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Factory workers stayed at their jobs for days without sleep to build weapons and equipment. Farmers donated food for the soldiers. Children collected metal for the shipyards. In New York, an old man named Harry Chen had fought in the Mars colony, war 40 years earlier. He was too old to fight now, but he volunteered to work in the weapon factories. "My grandson might live on one of those colony worlds someday," he said. "I want him to live in a galaxy where good people help each other." In London, a young woman named Rachel Brooks, no relation to the president, quit her job as a teacher to join the fleet as a communications officer. Her students made her a banner that said, "Come home safe, Miss Brooks." "I'm going so you won't have to," she told them. The fleet that finally assembled near Luna was unlike anything ever seen before. At its center was the massive dreadnought UES Leviathan, commanded by Captain Mary Rodriguez. Mary had been the first woman to command a battleship, and now she would lead humanity's most important mission. Around the Leviathan were cruisers, destroyers, frigates, and support ships from every nation on Earth. There were Brazilian patrol boats next to Japanese destroyers, Russian heavy cruisers next to Nigerian frigates. For the first time in history, all of humanity was working together. But the most impressive thing about the fleet wasn't its size or its weapons. It was the people inside the ships. They came from every country, every culture, every walk of life. But they all shared the same belief. When someone asks for help, you help them. Chief Petty Officer Greg Murphy had served in the Space Navy for 15 years. He had never seen anything like the fleet preparing to leave Earth. As the ships formed, up for the jump to hyperspace, he sent a message that would be remembered across the galaxy. "This is the human fleet calling all stations. We go now to answer the call of the Zelani people. Let it be known throughout the stars. Earth remembers its friends." The jump to hyperspace began at exactly noon, Earth time. 847 ships disappeared from the solar system in flashes of light, carrying humanity's hopes and dreams to a world 40 light-years away. Behind them, Earth waited and prayed for their safe return. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Christos to see a sight that made everyone angry. The beautiful crystal world was dying. Where the Zelani had described shining cities that could be seen from space, there were now only broken fragments and dark craters. Admiral Ben Collins stood on the bridge of the UES Leviathan and watched the destruction through the main screen. Around the planet, hundreds of Korthak ships continued their bombardment. They had been doing this for 3 years, slowly destroying everything the Zelani had built. "How many Korthak ships are there?" he asked. "Sensors show 412 enemy vessels," reported Lieutenant Amy Clark. "They have us outnumbered, sir." Admiral Collins smiled grimly. "They don't know humans very well, do they?" The Korthak had expected any rescue fleet to attack them directly, ship against ship in a big space battle. That was how all their previous enemies had fought, but Admiral Collins had other plans. "Commander Pete Johnson, take your stealth ships and start hitting their supply lines," he ordered. "Captain Nancy Clark, get your fighters ready for hit-and-run attacks. We're not going to fight them the way they expect." Pete Johnson commanded 12 small, fast ships that could hide from enemy sensors. His job was to sneak behind enemy lines and attack the big cargo ships that brought food, fuel, and ammunition to the Korthak fleet. Pete's first target was a massive supply convoy heading toward Christos. The Korthak ships were slow and heavily loaded with only a few escort vessels. Pete's ship struck like lightning, destroying the cargo ships and disappearing before the escorts could react. "Supply convoy Alpha is gone," Pete reported back to Admiral Collins. "The Korthak won't be getting any fresh supplies for a while." At the same time, Captain Nancy Clark was leading fighter attacks against Korthak bomber formations. Nancy had been a pilot for 12 years, but she had never seen anything like the enemy ships. They were huge, ugly, and moved in straight lines, like they were marching in a parade. "These aliens have never learned to dogfight," Nancy told her pilots over the radio. "They think flying in formation makes them strong. Let's show them what human pilots can do." Nancy's fighters came at the Korthak bombers from above and below, using three-dimensional tactics that the aliens had never seen before. The Korthak pilots didn't know how to respond to attacks coming from unexpected directions. Within hours, Nancy's squadron had destroyed 30 enemy bombers without losing a single human fighter. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Sarah Morgan was a reconnaissance officer whose job was to study enemy communications. Sarah had always been good with computers, and she noticed something strange about the Korthak command signals. "Their computer systems are really old," she told her commanding officer. "They haven't updated their security in decades." Sarah worked with Sergeant Mike Davis, a cyber warfare specialist who had grown up playing computer games and hacking systems for fun. Together, they found a way to break into the Korthak military network. "It's like they built a castle but forgot to lock the back door," Mike explained to Admiral Collins. "We can get into their systems and turn their own weapons against them." The cyber attack began at midnight ship time. Mike and his team infiltrated the computer systems of the largest Korthak battleships. They took control of weapons, navigation, and life support systems. The first sign of trouble came when a Korthak heavy cruiser suddenly turned its guns on its own fleet. The alien ship began firing at other Korthak vessels, causing confusion and panic throughout their formation. Then the navigation systems on 50 Korthak ships began malfunctioning. The ships started flying in circles or heading away from Christos completely. Some ships collided with each other as their computers gave them wrong directions. Admiral Collins watched from the Leviathan as the enemy fleet fell apart. "I've never seen anything like this," he said. "They're defeating themselves." But the Korthak weren't completely helpless. Their fleet commander, a brutal alien named Warlord Grix, realized what was happening and ordered all ships to switch to manual control. The cyber attack stopped working, but by then it was too late. The Korthak fleet was scattered and confused. Many of their ships were damaged or destroyed, their supply lines were cut, and their communications were in chaos. Captain Mary Rodriguez took the Leviathan and the main battle group forward to finish the job. The remaining Korthak ships tried to form a defensive line, but they were outnumbered now and demoralized. The space battle that followed was short but decisive. Human ships used coordinated attacks and superior tactics to overwhelm the confused enemy. The Korthak had never faced an enemy that could think and adapt so quickly. Warlord Grix himself tried to escape in his flagship, a massive dreadnought that was twice the size of any human ship, but Captain Rodriguez had been waiting for him. "This is for the Zilani people," she said as the Leviathan's main guns fired. The Korthak flagship exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from the planet's surface. Within 6 hours of the battle's start, it was over. The surviving Korthak ships were fleeing in all directions, running away as fast as they could. The 3-year siege of Christos had ended. On the planet below, the Zilani people emerged from their underground shelters for the first time in months. Their crystal cities were damaged but not destroyed. With the bombardment stopped, they could begin to rebuild. The first Zilani message to the human fleet was simple but moving. "Thank you for keeping your promise. You came when we called, and you saved our world." Admiral Collins stood on his bridge and looked down at the crystal world of Christos. The planet was already beginning to glow again as the Zilani people restored power to their cities. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "Mission accomplished. The Zilani people are free." But even as the human fleet celebrated their victory, they didn't know that news of the battle was already spreading across the galaxy. Other species had been watching to see what would happen when humans first went to war in space. The message that went out to 1,000 worlds was simple. Humans keep their promises. When someone asks for help, they send their fleet. The news of humanity's victory at Christos spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within days, alien communication networks were buzzing with stories about the humans who had traveled 40 light years to save a species they had never met. Ambassador John Carter was the first human to set foot on Haven Station, a neutral trading post where dozens of alien species met to do business. John had been a diplomat on Earth for 20 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. The station's main hall fell silent when he walked in. Hundreds of aliens from different worlds stopped talking and stared at the human. John felt nervous, wondering if they saw him as a threat. Then a tall, blue-skinned alien stepped forward. "You are from Earth?" the alien asked in broken English. "Yes," John replied carefully. The alien smiled, showing rows of small, sharp teeth. "My people heard what you did for the Zilani. We have been waiting to meet humans who keep their promises." Within hours, John's small diplomatic office was crowded with representatives from 17 different species. They all wanted the same thing: protection from the Korthak Empire and other aggressive civilizations. The Vorthon were a race of peaceful traders whose merchant ships were constantly attacked by pirates. The Aquari were water-breathing people, whose ocean world was threatened by industrial pollution from a neighboring system. The Epsilon were small, intelligent creatures who had been enslaved by a militaristic empire for 3 generations. "We have been afraid for so long," explained Ambassador Zilka of the Vorthon. "The strong take what they want and the weak suffer. But you humans showed us something different. You showed us that strength can be used to protect instead of destroy." John sent urgent messages back to Earth. President Helen Brooks called. Another emergency meeting of the United Earth Defense Council. This time the debate was different. 17 species want to join an alliance with us, John reported via video link. They're offering to share technology, resources, and knowledge in exchange for protection. Senator Carol Davis, who had opposed the original mission to help the Zilani, now supported the idea. "This could be the beginning of something amazing," she said. "A galaxy where civilizations work together instead of conquering each other." The Terran Protection Alliance was officially formed 6 months after the Battle of Christos. Earth became the center of a new kind of galactic organization, one based on mutual defense and cooperation rather than conquest. Admiral Ben Collins was promoted to head the new Galactic Defense Force. The headquarters was built on Luna, in the Ubgiri, same shipyards where the fleet to save Christos had been assembled. Ships from allied species began arriving to join the human fleet. The first joint operation came when the Epsilon people asked for help freeing their enslaved homeworld. General Linda Hayes led a combined force of human Marines and Vorthon commandos in a liberation mission that lasted only 3 days. The slavers had never faced an enemy that fought for freedom instead of profit, Linda reported. When their slaves realized help had come, they rose up and joined the fight. Liberation is contagious. Meanwhile, the Korthak Empire was falling apart. Without their reputation for unstoppable conquest, subject worlds began rebelling everywhere. The empire had been held together by fear, and humans had shown that the Korthak could be defeated. Captain Pete Johnson, who had led the stealth attacks at Christos, now commanded a special task force that supported these rebellions. His ships carried weapons, supplies, and most importantly, hope to oppressed peoples across the galaxy. "We don't do the fighting for them," Pete explained to his officers. "We just give them the tools and the knowledge they need to free themselves. Every species deserves the right to choose their own destiny." The most dramatic change came in the galactic balance of power. For centuries, large empires had dominated smaller civilizations through military might. Now the small civilizations were banding together under human protection. The Zilani, grateful for their rescue, became humanity's strongest allies. Their crystal technology, combined with human innovation, produced new types of ships and weapons that were shared freely among alliance members. Dr. Lisa Park, who had converted the luxury liner into a hospital ship, now ran medical exchange programs between Earth and dozens of alien worlds. Human doctors learned alien healing techniques, while alien medics studied human surgical procedures. "Medicine is universal," she told a conference of interspecies doctors. "Pain is the same whether you have 2 legs or 6 tentacles. Healing brings all civilizations together, But the greatest change was in how the galaxy thought about conflict and cooperation. The old system of might makes right was being replaced by something new. A community of species that believed in helping each other. Captain Jake Morrison, who had received the original Zilani distress call, now commanded the exploration ship, Discovery, on missions to distant galaxies. His job was to make contact with new civilizations and invite them to join the growing alliance. "We're not looking for subjects or colonies," Jake would tell newly contacted species. "We're looking for friends. We believe the galaxy is big enough for everyone to prosper together." 3 years after the Battle of Christos, the alliance included 47 different species. The Galactic Defense Force had become the most powerful military organization in known space, but it was also the most peaceful. Wars were becoming rare as more civilizations chose cooperation over conquest. The Korthak Empire still existed, but it was a shadow of its former self. Many former Korthak worlds had joined the alliance after overthrowing their oppressors. The remaining Korthak territories were isolated and weak. On the 4th anniversary of the Battle of Christos, the Zilani held a galaxy-wide celebration. Representatives from dozens of worlds gathered on the crystal planet to commemorate the day. That changed everything. A great monument was erected in the center of the largest Zilani city. It could be seen from orbit, a towering crystal spire that caught and reflected light from the system's star. Carved into its base, in the languages of all alliance members, were simple words. When we asked for help, humans answered. When the galaxy needed hope, humanity brought the fleet. President Helen Brooks, now in her second term, attended the ceremony. As she looked up at the monument, she thought about her grandfather's words about the measure of a civilization. "We didn't just save one world," she said in her speech. "We saved the idea that good people should help each other. We proved that strength should protect the weak, not exploit them." The celebration was broadcast across the galaxy. On distant worlds, alien children learned about the humans who had traveled the stars to help strangers. The story became legend, then myth, then truth that shaped how entire civilizations thought about their place in the universe. And somewhere in deep space, human exploration ships continued their work, carrying a simple message to every corner of the galaxy. Earth remembers. Its friends